Hello everybody, Neon Hero doing a patch review for Eternal here. We got a big fat patch that just dropped. Oh, my son says hi. Hopefully he's not too loud. I don't think he'll be that loud over the course of it, but he's just over in the corner watching some TV, so you might hear a little bit of that too, but it shouldn't be that bad. So let's review it though. So starts off with, we got Twilight Hunt that goes up to two. Like, dinosaurs are so fucking bad. They're absolute trash, right? Like, I don't think that there were any major buffs to dinosaurs in this patch. I think there was a couple units that either had the dinosaur tag added or removed. There was none of them that really caught my eye, though, as being an interesting card. Now, there's a few of these cards, but one thing I will mention is that we had a lot of changes that relate to unit types in one way or another. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is priming the pumps for a content release of some sort down the road, which could be a long time in the future. Like, it could be significantly, like, not just like in the next, like, 3 to 6 months. It could be, a year and a half, but they're like maybe crafting some of the your pathway towards priming that. But yeah, so Twilight Hunt now gives +2/+2 until dinosaurs are better. I don't really see this seeing a ton of plays because they're just pretty bad right now. And I mean, I guess you might want it as a Nightfall Neighbor. I don't know. I don't see it for right now. Moonstone Vanguard down to 4/4. This is a pretty draw a card when it blocks you, gain 4 life. Is that, yeah, that's down 2. Okay. I had not realized that. So pledge decks obviously have been a little bit ridiculous for a while. Like, I haven't even recorded videos for it because I just find them so boring to play. That was actually one of the things that was particularly weird about this meta that we were just in, is like, while it was still like reasonably varied, there were some elements of it that I found really annoying. Like, it just was not a fun metagame. Like, the pledge decks, I think, were quite good. They were just obnoxious to either play with or against, because when they do their busted thing, when they get multiple cockroaches, not the cockroaches, what is the new glasshoppers? When they have multiple glasshoppers, when they get they kind of like cur out with it, like, it's just kind of like, okay, well, whatever, I'm dead, and I didn't play any meaningful Eternal, because there's only so many ways that you can interact with a deck like that. And then Stone Scar 2 is just like super absurd power level of a deck relative to everything else, and I just didn't find that it had particularly compelling play patterns. I mean, like, obviously you can have good games with any deck. Like, I just think, like, relatively speaking, I think that these are pretty bland to be playing. So yeah, so I'm happy to see Moonstone Vanguard go down, because this was a card that was kind of getting on my nerves, in that, especially, like, there was just so many cards that sat on aggro. We've seen, like, a bunch of changes now over the course of, like, 2 patches, basically, that are, really pushing on anti-aggro cards. Like, the next card, obviously, is Vara, that got changed, like, making her much more vulnerable to Torch. We'll talk about that shortly, of course. So having those changes was such a, like we really had to push a lot of anti-aggro cards out in order to maybe we'll finally get a little bit more aggro. I guess there was more after the previous format, but still not at its best. I don't know. I'm happy to see a change, though, because Praxis has been so good for so long, and I find it especially given the fact that it has the insignia and it has all this, like, great shit. So I don't know, it was a boring deck, and I'm happy to see it be pushed out a little bit between Moonstone Vanguard and then Daria getting bumped up to a 5-cost 3/5 as opposed to a 4-cost 3/4. So, which is a really substantial nerf to her. The fact that she was a 4-drop made a big difference, because you could just curve it more easily if that was that could be your 4-drop, or your 3-drop rather, if you got the Glasshopper. But the bigger application was playing it a little bit later in the game. The fact that also it's a dual faction pledge is so powerful as well. So I'm not surprised to see them pull the power level back on this. Vara going to a 3/3. She was one of the major reasons why aggro was so bad, because she's such a, like, you either have to sacrifice one of the few units that you have, or she's just kind of unkillable. Even as a 3/4, she's really hard to kill. The fact that she both like the 3/4 body means that she dodges both Torch and Vanquish. Like the 3/4 number is kind of magical in that way. And then going up to the 5/6, like obviously that's now in Vanquish range. But the fact that it also she can just eat a Sandstorm Titan, she was, I think, a big reason why the time decks were just non-existent. Like mid-rangey time decks, with the exception of Genev, if you count that, that's kind of a different beast altogether. It's closer, it feels closer to a Winchest deck in some ways, but yeah, like it was a like she was just so hard to attack through because you either had to sacrifice one of your very high value units, your very good units, or you to get her to be a 3/4, or you had to trade like a Heart of the Vault for like a 6/6 or something like that, and it just also made the burn plan basically impossible as well. Like she was such a pain in the ass for mid-rangey time decks. So yeah, she was just a stone cold killer in those matchups, and they will be happy to see her pushed off. And this is also a big leg up to any fire-based aggro deck. Like Sky Crag is rejoicing. They are pumped by this. They now have an even better suite of options for getting rid of Vara, which she was less of a problem for them as she was, in the various points in the past, but now she's like kind of not that big of a deal. Like if she sticks, obviously it's a problem still, but it's a lot easier to that's not gonna happen very often, and it'll also reward good play patterns because he will hold up the torch or not play out the Vara until there's no opportunity to kill her. So I think this actually makes it a little bit more interesting in how it plays out, because 4 was just so hard to kill it at fast speed without like a real kill spell. Just the only thing that really mattered there was display of impulse, which mattered. Another set of big ones. We have Acharya going to 7 cost again. This is a good answer to Sights now. She was she would have been a good answer to Sights previously. She was then pushed out to 8 cost. It was actually something that I had been thinking the other day. That I was like, man, maybe it's time for Acharya to come back. I kind of miss her. She has done her time, and I mean, I was kind of one of the leading people of saying, like, I want her benched, I want her off, I want her gone for a bit, and she was gone for a bit. So now I'm fine with it, and I think that also the power level of the format has just increased substantially. Like things like Sediti are, I mean, she pairs obviously with Sediti quite well, aside from the fact that they don't have an insignia for Rakano, but the fact that she's not going to be able to kind of freely jam in there for a 5 every time, because there's a little bit more competition in the air, I think. We have, like, she can keep down sights, so it makes it a little bit easier to balance sights, because one of the problems with them is that, especially since Highwayman was murdered, it was a lot easier to just stick a sight and very hard to then remove it once it was already in play. Acharya is a really good solution to that. So I think that she'll definitely be at the very least a market card. She is a very solid market card in some decks in some situations. There's a pretty good chance that Rakano mid-range / ramp wants her, like the Rikoku deck that he's been playing a lot of and had some success with in tournaments and such. And I think that there's a reasonable chance that a deck like that will want her. But that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. There's kind of been a little bit of a tension in those decks. It's like what exactly they want to ram to, and I think that Acharya is better than most of the other options. So I'm pretty happy, especially if we see a diminishment of Vara's presence. Statuary Maiden got fucking demolished. Went from a 2/4 to a 2/2. Like, she got leveled. She got crushed. This is a huge nerf to her. I would say that she's basically unplayable at this point. The fact that she didn't die to Torch was the entire reason that she was a card in the game, and that because you could play it against mid-rangey decks that you trade time, like for a time unit, you trade for a Titan, and you get a cloud drill, so you feel ahead in that exchange. And then also she is a brick wall to aggressive strategies because she has that critical fourth toughness, and maybe you get some cudgels together and you slap them on a lifesteal unit or a flyer or an endurance unit, something like that, and you can close the game those ways. So she is like the fact that she dies to torch means it's a lot. My ferocious son. Yeah, so like that's pretty. It's substantial. Like this is she is kind of unplayable now. I shouldn't say kind of. She's. Oh, you want to say hi?
Let's talk about her toys.
Oh, okay.
In this train at the tractor.
Oh, you went with the train?
Train.
It's just a little of my son content. I'll leave it in, but if it gets more distracting, I'll cut it out. So Shush is the next card. Silence a unit and each copy in its owner's hand, deck, and void. I don't know why we would play this still. The text is just so lackluster. It would have to be, we'd have to see a Return of Reanimator, I believe, in order for this to be. This is the number one card, by the way. This is the number one card, by the way, that I always go back to when people are like going off about, whatever, thing. Be like, yeah, people thought that Shush was going to be OP. Shush was going to cripple all of the void interaction decks. Shush was going to be everywhere, ruining all the fun of the game. The card was absolute dog shit. It is still dog shit, though. Like, it's. Like when it was released, it was a long time ago. The format was much less powerful, and it cost 3. Now it costs 2, so it's roughly as bad as when it first came out. So that'll let you know how I feel about it. Knight Chancellor Seraph. Shout out to my girl, by the way. Seraph and I, we go way back. We are very close. We did some dirty things together back in the day. But she's a little bit, lost her luster. Little. Not the waifu she once was, and I don't think this change is going to help it too much. So pay 7, exhaust Seraph to play a random time or justice unit and double its attack and health. That was not the problem with this card. The problem with this card is that 7 or 8 is a lot of cost, and the games just usually don't go long. I mean, maybe this is better than I'm giving it credit for. I would have liked to see them change it so that she no longer exhausted. I think that the game can handle that now. Part of the reason that she was so good back in the day, back in closed beta, was that you could activate her multiple times, and the game, because the games went on that long, there was just so fewer ways to close the game and really create a dominating presence or generate card advantage on an ongoing fashion. We just got a lot more of that now. So I personally feel like if you could stick her and it gets to like 16 power or even 14 power and double activate her, like that seems actually like okay to me. I mean, she would probably go into some busted ramp decks, but like I feel like that's a decent enough payoff. It wouldn't be that much better than anything else that has been going on for a while. I guess that now that Martyr's Chains has been nerfed too, it would be better than that. I don't know. I don't think that would have been an issue, but she's probably not going to see play still. I mean, it's maybe possible that the metagame moves enough for it. I'm a little bit suspicious that she's got the juice to get there. Seraph's Choice. This is a draft focus change, I imagine. It's not even really, because like this wasn't even that good in draft. Seraph's. Oh, I understand why it's changed like this. It's to line up with the cost of her ability. That makes sense. Okay, I was wondering like this is. I don't understand why this was changed, but yeah, no, that's just to line up with her ability better. So whatever. Banish. Yeah, hopefully you guys know. Seraph's Choice is just absolute dog shit. Don't play it in Constructed. I don't know if it's illegal in Draft at this point, but probably still not good there. Banish, kill an enemy unit or relic with 5 cost or less. Pretty big buff here. The fact that we can now hit the hybrid cycle, which is like the monofaction ones, the like Rost and Sediti and it's Tazbu, like the cycle. Like the fact that we can hit those is a big buff. We can hit the diesels, so we can hit the World Era Humid, we can hit Joan Feast Caller, etc. Another big you get for Banish. I guess that those haven't been seeing as much play since the release of the other cycle. So, but still, this is a very good card now. I would say I think this is something you actively want to be playing a lot of the time. You would also hit if you get happen to get hit by the Curse of Provocation, you can remove that now too. So this is a buff. This is a nerf to CTT by proxy. Not a particularly powerful one, but that is it is at least kind of a tap to CDT there, which I appreciate. Bartolo, the Seducer, is back to 3 costs. It should actually be noted. That Bartolo altogether has been buffed because he originally had a ultimate ability that cost 10, and now it got changed to 7 when his cost was bumped up to 4, and now he's gone back down to 3, and he still has that ultimate 7. This is the same trajectory as actually Deathstrike took in a weird way. This is just sort of lore backstory of Eternal for those of you who are interested. So in the closed beta, originally Deathstrike was 4 cost, 1 shadow influence, kill the unit at uncommon. Then they moved it to common and then made it double shadow influence. And then for reasons that were kind of unclear to me at the time and still unclear to me now, because I was like, everybody was kind of like, oh, this is really good in draft. It's really, really good in draft. But then it was adjusted again to be a 4 cost uncommon with the same cost as the double shadow cost, maybe. So it was the reverse, I guess. So yeah, it was kind of a 2 changes and ultimately getting worse. This is 2 changes and ultimately getting better. But the point here with Bartolo is that he I'm not sure how he stacks up with things, because it's been a long time. It's been a long time since he's been around. It's a long time since we've seen his style of deck, the load shit up with weapons and kill people with it, because the removal's just been so good and the blockers are so good, the threats are so good. Bartolo is good enough and interesting enough to actually warrant some amount of exploration. And now that he is back, I'm tempted to say that it's a long shot for him to be playable in top tier constructed, because he is going to be overpowered by a lot of material, and the fact that you have to get like Vara is still going to be around to pop the Aegis just incidentally. And there's a lot more snowballs around too. Another way to pop that Aegis incidentally. So he's definitely substantially worse. We also haven't seen any new good relic weapons. Or not relic weapons, weapons printed in that time, right? I can't think of anything that are like, oh yeah, this is a Justice or Shadow or both weapon that's been printed in the last 3 sets that's gonna be great with Bard. I can't think of one. So, but I mean, we do also have the actually I guess we have the bracers. Is this good enough for the bracers? It's interesting with bracers. Very weird. So, I mean, bracers, they probably putting this in a Tavron deck. I don't know. There's at least testing worth doing here. And the vote that you have is Slay and Desecrate makes it appealing too. But the last card we got here that I am very happy to discuss here is Even-Handed Golem. You guys might have noticed that I haven't been putting out a ton of Eternal content recently. Part of the reason is because I've been finding actually surprisingly dull to play the games. And one of the big reasons why is this motherfucker right here. I would argue still right now that even-handed Golem decks were not overpowered in an absolute sense. They weren't better than a lot of other things that you could be doing. They were absolutely fucking obnoxious to play against, though, because when you face off against turn 2 even-handed Golem and you're against like a Felon deck and you know that they have the Howling Scream, they have the Last Chance, and that they're going to be drawing into more Golems themselves, like, it was tough. It was really tough. I despised it. So the two cards that were the biggest offenders of this, of making the game, I think, much less enjoyable, were this and Royal Decree, both of which I would argue are not overpowered in an absolute sense. They are just like the games in which they are good, the opponent has a miserable time. And when Even-Hand Golem was at his best, he was just entirely unfun to be around. And I'm not going to miss him at all. So I think that we'll probably see at least some fringe meme decks still with Golem. Like, that's fine, and that's where I would want him to be. This was actually a change I had been thinking of. I don't think I'm going to discuss it with anybody, but I discussed it with myself at the very least. So yeah, fuck this card. Fuck it so hard. Like, it was so annoying to play against, because when you have a slow hand and your opponent goes turn 2, even-handed Golem on the play, you're like, okay, well, fuck, I'm dead. I'm not gonna do anything meaningful because my opponent is just way too far ahead on card advantage compared to me, and they're just gonna be able to recycle it for the rest of the game, basically. So yeah, not going to miss this one. Pretty happy about that, but that will be it. There are a bunch of other changes too in terms of like namings and stuff like that. The tribal bits. I think there's the one that stuck out to me is that Rindra is now an elf, which is a nice little buff to Rindra. But not going to be. I'd be surprised if it was a big deal. I haven't really played with the elf decks very much. I know people request them a lot from me to do in some video or whatever. But maybe I'll have a chance to do that now. But anyway, that will do it for me. Thank you so much for joining me. Very interesting patch, and hopefully we'll be doing some content coming in the next couple of weeks. Definitely going to be doing some stuff for that new format that we got, the Expedition format that's coming up really soon. But yeah, that will do it. Thank you so much once again, and take care, everybody.